Hi, everybody. It's Pastor Rob with one final Bible devotion for the year that was 2020. Tonight we say sayonara to 2020. Goodbye and good riddance. 2020, you will be long remembered, but you will never be desired. Nobody wants to go back to 2020. Now listen, here's one big takeaway. If you would say, Pastor Rob, what's the big lesson from 2020? What's the big takeaway? Well, I would say there's a couple of them. But first of all, I want to point us to the scriptures, the great place of encouragement and instruction. Today I'm in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, you take time to look that up. I'll reference that in just a minute, 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10. And the Apostle Paul has given us some wonderful truths, and I want to leave this with you on New Year's Eve. I figure everybody's going to be home and scrolling through their phones. So, hey, how about a little spiritual encouragement before we wrap this year up and go into a brand new year? But I would say of the big lessons that we learned this year, the big lessons that I learned this year, number one, never take stability for granted. Man, we just thought this thing was just going to keep rolling on through. Everything was going to be made in the shade, sipping lemonade. Sam's Club would always be full. Walmart would always be there. We could go to the bank. We could go to the church. We could go anywhere we wanted and do anything we wanted unhindered. We are the land of the free because we're the home of the brave. We learned not to take that for granted. Number two, we learned that everything can change. And man, it can change fast. My friend, in my whole life, I never thought we would see what we saw happen in 2020, nor did I think it would happen as fast as we saw it happen in 2020. Number two, everything can change. Number three, I think this security is fleeting. You know, we put our security in so many different things. We put it on maybe our political system, our economy, our job, you know, all the machinery that we have in the society and the wonderful stability we have here, and it was gone. Security was very fleeting. But I would say of those three lessons, it brings me up to the one final point. This is it, the big lesson. This is what you've been watching this video for. What is the big lesson we learned this year? It is this: Jesus is enough. He is. Jesus is enough. Now listen, let me read to you in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 7. He says, and lest I should, this is the Apostle Paul speaking, lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of revelations that was given unto me, a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. Now listen to verse 9. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And then Apostle Paul picks up and says this, most gladly therefore will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. And then in verse 10, he goes on and finishes that thought. Now listen, the Apostle Paul had a problem. He came to a place of pain and suffering, and he had a very real issue. He went to the Lord first time and second time and third time, and finally God came back to him and said, listen, just shut up about this. It's not going to change. It's not going to go away. But God said to Paul, I am enough. He said Jesus is enough. God's grace is enough. My friend, if I learned one big lesson this year, listen, through the pain, through the problems, through the pandemic, through the craziness of the politics, through the loss of so many dear people, listen, Jesus is enough. He is enough. Listen, Jesus is all sufficient. My friend, no matter what we face this year, what you faced or I faced, listen, Jesus is sufficient. He is all sufficient. His grace is sufficient. His presence, His supply. Not only is He sufficient, but He's satisfying. Oh, wonderful grace of Jesus. My friend, Jesus is satisfying. He's so satisfying, but He's also stabilizing. My friend, I hope one thing that I have tried in all of these videos to do, these hundreds and hundreds of videos this year, is to say this: keep looking to Jesus. My friend, that's not just a tagline. It's not just a logo or a motto. It's a truth. It's a spiritual reality that Jesus is enough. God's grace is sufficient. So as we wind down 2020, we go into 2021, you say, what's the big takeaway from 2020? Jesus is enough. God's grace is sufficient. My friends, let's really keep looking unto Jesus. I have no idea what 2021 is going to hold. It may be wilder than 2020, but listen, my friend, come what may, Jesus is enough. Hey, thanks for watching all these videos this year. On behalf of myself, Miss Tawny, I want to just wish you all a very blessed, happy, and healthy new year. We look to forward to seeing you in the new year. God bless.